At the age of 51, I hold the position of assistant manager at a large warehouse complex. At the same time, my wife of 54 years works as a real estate agent in Tampa, Florida. She takes care of her 2 children who are in college, and I have no children myself. 10 years ago, fate brought my wife and me together at a business convention, and we have been together ever since. Our common hobbies are traveling, going to the beach, and spending time with family. Helping the local community, volunteering at soup kitchens, and organizing food drives for those in need are important to us. Being able to make a positive impact on someone's life and make a meaningful contribution to our society has been an incredibly rewarding feeling. My wife is socially active, often attending events and spending time with her girlfriends. Our intimate life has also been fulfilling. However, I was occasionally bothered by her tendency to flirt excessively with men in positions of authority. I distinctly remember an incident that occurred at a real estate event when we attended a gathering of industry professionals. She was talking to one of the real estate developers. After lunch, I immediately made a remark about what I thought was excessive flirting in my presence. She responded by explaining that she was socializing mostly for work. Although she eventually apologized, her sincerity remained in question. Over time, her outings with her friends became more frequent, leading to numerous absences from home. These trips were relatively short, only a few days each, but they became a frequent occurrence. Her group consisted of my wife and 3 other women of varying marital statuses. 2 were married, and 2 were single, at least that's what she told me. I've always been the kind of person who trusts 100% until proven wrong, and that persisted in my attitude toward my wife as well. One evening after work, my wife gave me a call, mentioning that she intended to bring dinner home and inquiring about my meal preferences. However, I noticed that she had put me on speakerphone, and from the background noise, it appeared that there were 2 other women present in the car with her. During the conversation, one of the women exclaimed, "Hey, are you joining us for the Miami trip?" Caught off guard, I hesitated and directed a question to my wife, inquiring, "Who is she speaking to?" My wife clarified that the woman was addressing me. Despite my confusion, I responded, "No, I'll likely be occupied with work." Later, when my wife returned home, we engaged in a discussion concerning her uncommunicated plans to travel to Miami. A heated argument ensued between us, and during this conversation she revealed that the decision to go to Miami was a last-minute one. She claimed that she was going to let me know about it, but her friend blabbed about it. My wife later told me that they had visited a bar where one of her friends had consumed too much alcohol. While working as a real estate agent, my wife often interacted with different people, explored different neighborhoods, actively participated in community activities, and offered help to others. However, as mentioned above, she enjoyed flirting. Her job as a real estate agent brought in an annual income of over $120,000. My own annual earnings hovered around $40,000, well below my wife's income. It's worth noting that her path to her current earnings was not a quick one. It took her several years to reach this level. She was actively engaged in preparing to leave for Miami. Amazingly, she spent a lot of money on clothes, considering her already extensive closet. A few days later, she traveled to Miami, located just 4.5 hours away from Tampa. The plan was for her to be there for 4 days. However, on the second day of her absence, when I got home from work, something happened. Around 7:00 p.m., there was a distinct knock on the door. A man dressed in a strict suit stood on the threshold, clutching a substantial manila envelope under his arm. He addressed me by name and, handing me the envelope, said, "This is for you." After handing me the envelope, he left. Opening the envelope, I found a note with a contact phone number and the words, "Contact me if you would like to discuss the photos." My gaze fell on the first photo, which showed my wife sitting on a man's lap. His hands were on her back and they were engaged in a passionate kiss. It looked like they were in some kind of nightclub. Then a scene by the pool. In this shot, my wife and a man are kissing passionately in the pool. At this point, I decided to call the phone number listed on the note. In the course of the conversation, it turned out that the man was a private investigator. He was following one of the other wives, hired because of her husband's suspicion of infidelity. His job was to gather information about the client's wife's social circle. Upon further examination of the images, I came across 3 more photos that captured moments of undeniable intimacy between my wife and the same man. At that moment, a mix of anger, frustration, and heartache overwhelmed me. With tears welling up, I dialed my dad's number and recounted the recent events. In response, he advised me to first regain my composure, and then strongly recommended that I avoid revealing anything to her. "I won't utter a word," I assured my father. I promised that I would act calmly. With only 1 day left before my wife returned from her trip, I held an online consultation with an attorney. During the consultation, I spoke frankly about the situation and told him that I had proof of my wife's infidelity. "Unfortunately, in Florida, it doesn't matter," he said. He further explained that Florida is a no-fault state. After that, he asked, "How long have you been married?" I informed him that our marriage had lasted a little over a decade. My plan was to hire a lawyer within the next day, while maintaining a semblance of normalcy at home. Within hours of her return, I discreetly set up 2 additional online accounts, one for direct deposits and one for general use. The next morning, my wife returned, which unintentionally disrupted my well-thought-out plan, as she had the next 2 days off. As such, I had to postpone my plan for a while. On the 3rd day, she returned to work. I left the house following her. While she was gone, I contacted my father and asked Kenny to lend me some money to pay my attorney fees, to which he agreed. I paid a lawyer and instructed him to start divorce proceedings, citing irreconcilable differences as the reason. After that, I packed my things, and with the help of my father, I moved most of my possessions to his apartment in his truck. However, at that time, I had not yet moved in with him. I wanted to stay until she was officially served with divorce papers. 2 weeks went by, and to my amazement, no one had informed her. Another week went by, and my wife was served with divorce papers while she was at her workplace. Following this, my phone started receiving messages from her asking what is going on. I was at my house that day when I got a call from my ex-spouse from SUNY B. I decided to ask my dad to be present in our house since I didn't trust her. My father arrived just 5 minutes before her. As soon as she walked in, she immediately asked me why I filed for divorce and why I decided to do it. I pulled the pictures out of my bag and showed them to her, telling her that these were the reasons for my decision to file for divorce. She immediately covered her mouth in shock, tears streamed down her face, and she tried to apologize. By this point, however, I didn't even want to see her anymore. I said that we would meet in court. As you might expect, she flooded my phone with calls and text messages, wanting to consider options such as marriage counseling. For the divorce hearing, she hired an attorney who did everything he could to contest the process. My attorney conducted a strong defense, which resulted in the case ending favorably for me. I ended up receiving $60,000 in equity from the subsequent sale of the house, as well as $900 per month in spousal support for 3 years. We split the furniture, but I decided to give it to her. About a month later, I found out that my ex-wife had cheated on me before, but I didn't know it. One of her close friends had long considered telling me about my wife's cheating, but felt it was none of her business. She later expressed regret for not telling me about it and apologized to me. However, I said that if I had known about the affair, then I probably would not have been married to her. I have been married to her for 10 years. It has been 8 months since my divorce, during which time my ex-wife has sent me text messages almost every week, wondering how I am doing. However, I have made the decision not to respond to them. I have chosen not to change my phone number simply because I have chosen not to respond. It is my prerogative to make that decision. Although she mentioned in one of her messages that her children were interested in me, even that did not prompt me to respond. The heartache from this situation still lingers to this day, but I am fortunate to have supportive friends who do not bring up that tumultuous period. I am currently on a healing journey and have recently started therapy sessions. Despite the heartache, I am confident that I will be okay in the end. Thank you for listening to the story until the end, and if you enjoyed it, please show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on the story.